Good day, everyone. Today we're going to be doing Chapter 3 of Philosophy of Freedom, and I'm going to start off with paragraph 24. My contention that we must think before we can examine thinking might easily be countered by the apparently equally valid contention that we cannot wait with digesting until we have first observed the process of digestion. This objection would be similar to that brought by Pascal against Descartes, when he asserted that we might also say, I walk, therefore I am. Certainly, I must go straight ahead with digesting, and not wait until I have studied the physiological process of digestion, but I should only compare this with the study of thinking, if after digestion I set myself not to study it by thinking, but to eat and digest it. It is after all not without reason that whereas digestion cannot become the object of digestion, thinking can very well become the object of thinking. And the summary for that is, thinking can become the object of thinking, unlike digestion, which cannot be the object of digestion. So, I think he makes the point that we need to make thinking, we can think about thinking, and that's basically it. There's really no objection to that. And he argues that, you don't digest digestion to understand it. So you can't make digestion an object of digestion, but you can very well make thinking an object of thinking. Paragraph 25. This, then, is indisputable, that in thinking we have got hold of one corner of the whole world process, which requires our presence if anything is to happen, and this is just the point upon which everything turns. The very reason why things confront me in such a puzzling way is just that I play no part in their production. They are simply given to me, whereas in the case of thinking I know how it is done. Hence, for the study of all that happens in the world, there can be no more fundamental starting point than thinking itself. And the summary for that is, thinking, because I create it myself, is the starting point for the study of all that happens in the world. And so here he's just finalizing the idea that thinking is a good starting point for knowledge. And again, because we create our own thinking, that's why we're not as puzzled by it as we are with other objects that we are confronted with, but we don't create and whatnot. Paragraph 26. I should now like to mention a widely current error which prevails with regard to thinking. It is often said that thinking, as it is in itself, is nowhere given to us. The thinking that connects our observations and weaves a network of concepts about them is not at all the same as that which we subsequently extract from the objects of observation in order to make it the object of our study. What we first weave unconsciously into the things is said to be quite different when we consciously extract from them again. And the summary for that is, it is an error to consider that unconscious thinking is different from conscious thinking. So let me just explain this a little bit more. Here he's mentioning that the thinking that you're doing when you're observing tends to be unconscious, and then suddenly you kind of get this idea or whatnot, and then you're consciously making these connections. As he says here, I've underlined this in my book, the thinking that connects our observations and weaves a network of concepts about them is not at all the same as that which we subsequently extract from the objects of observation in order to make it the object of our study. And a lot of people think there's an error, like the thinking that we do, the unconscious and the conscious is two different things, but in reality, it is not. And he had previously mentioned that a free act cannot be an act that is unconscious, and a free act has to be done consciously. This idea of conscious and unconsciousness doesn't really apply to thinking, because your thinking is useful and effective regardless of whether you're conscious of it or not. The thing with thinking is you're not usually conscious of it right away, but you are usually thinking about things, and then suddenly it comes together and you have more clear ideas, and then you can probably consciously proceed to even think more about things. So, but that doesn't make thinking any less powerful than what it is, because even if you're not conscious of your thinking when you're doing it, because you are doing it, it's still a very powerful method for knowledge. And he'll explain that a little bit more in the next paragraph, which is paragraph 27. Those who hold this view do not see that it is impossible in this way to escape from thinking. I cannot get outside thinking when I want to study it. If we want to distinguish between thinking before we have become conscious of it, and thinking of which we have subsequently become aware, we should not forget that this distinction is a purely external one, which has nothing to do with the thing itself. I do not in any way alter a thing by thinking about it. I can well imagine that a being with quite differently constructed sense organs, and with a differently functioning intelligence, would have a very different mental picture of a horse from mine. But I cannot imagine that my own thinking becomes something different through the fact that I observe it. I myself observe what I myself produce. Here we are not talking of how my thinking looks to an intelligence other than mine, but of how it looks to me. In any case, the picture of my thinking which another intelligence might have cannot be a truer one than my own. Only if I were not myself the being doing the thinking, but if the thinking were to confront me as the activity of a being quite foreign to it, might I then say that although my own picture of the thinking may arise in a particular way, what the thinking of that being may be like in itself, I am quite unable to know. And again, he does point out that your thinking doesn't become any different now that you're observing it. Your thinking process is going on the same way whether you're aware of it or not. And the summary for paragraph 27 is, there is no difference between conscious and there is no difference between conscious and pre-conscious thought. My own thinking does not become something else because I observe it. I don't know why in our group used the word pre-conscious. I don't know if it was in... I have the English version of this book. I don't know if they used the word pre-conscious in the other American translation, so maybe that's why we have written down here pre-conscious, but pre-conscious can mean unconscious. So again, I'll just read it with unconscious. There is no difference between conscious and unconscious thought. My own thinking does not become something else because I observe it. So that's going to be it for that. And the next section we'll probably finish off chapter 3. So thank you and have a great day.